Okay, so who is Quintype and where do we operate? Now, most of you haven't, when we went to Denver, haven't heard of Quintype. It's because the middle of where we're starting is in the middle of this screen. If we look at the world, we're pretty much in the middle where India is, and we home turf is India. We have a fairly large footprint in the Indian subcontinent and across to those neighboring areas. So across on the eastern side, across Asia, and then across into the Middle East. We've had a long-standing relationship in Europe, in Finland and in the UK, and we're now starting to expand quite rapidly across the US. Since the pandemic, we haven't really put that much focus on the US, and then recently we've started to just pick up lots more clients, and we've put a bit more focus in terms of our US client base, and hence we were in market there for about a month a few weeks back and visited you at your event. We actually have over 250 publishers working with us. We support about 150 different languages, and we also have about 1.5 billion pages going through our platform on a monthly basis. So we really kind of quite rigorously tested all our products. They're being used on a daily basis, sometimes on a very large scale. So we have a fairly robust operation in terms of making sure that the products work and they function. Okay, so what is actually Quintype? Well, we call ourselves a DXP, but that might be just jargon. It's a digital experience platform. But the heart of the business is a headless CMS. It's an editor. It's a tool that allows you to create really strong, immersive stories and then publish those stories either on your website or your app or your newsletter or in social. That's the heart of the business, the Quintype business. But we've also got these other technologies which enable you as a publisher to have a much more rounded business, such as we provide you with mobile apps. We have it's called Page Builder here. That's the product's name, but essentially it's a no-code website builder. And the website I'm going to show you today was built using Page Builder. So if you don't have the resources to build your own custom designed front end, we have a super powerful, super capable tool that enables you to build that without any code or coding experience. MeType is our commenting platform, and AccessType is increasingly popular reader revenue platform where you can identify your readers in the first instance, and then if you want to then get them to start paying for content, you can do that through a metered paywall. So that's us. That's what we do. And this is quite important to stress. We work with some of the biggest names, and we work with tiny publishers, and I mean tiny micro publishers, and they all use the same technology. It's a big part of what we are, our values, our core values as a business, and that is we essentially want to democratize how people are using different types of technology. So we work with the Bloomberg, we work with Fortune and Forbes. On the top left-hand corner here, there's a publisher called News Laundry. It's 100% subscription. CDO Magazine it's a community-based publisher website out of the US just for chief data officers. So we work with very community-based publishers, and we work with some of the largest with the enormous velocity of content going through their platform. And we work with publishers who want a very immersive type of experience for their readers as well. All of them use exactly the same technology. And that's primarily because our objective here is to democratize newsroom technology. We feel that our technology shouldn't be inaccessible to anybody that wants to publish, create content and publish, and the best tools should be available to them in order for them to focus on creating the content rather than being experts at tech. We're the experts at tech, and our job really is to do the heavy lifting and enable those content creators and journalists to write great content. And this isn't a gimmick, because I said this at the event. We genuinely start at $100. We genuinely start. In fact, half of the publishers I met at the Denver CPA event would be in this bracket. They're small, hyper-local publishers who've got a very loyal readership, and they're coming from a print background, and essentially they've got a small but very loyal and very important audience, they would be in this bracket. And this is exactly the same technology that we would be using for Bloomberg in India, or we're using for, we have a publisher in Bangladesh that has over 200 million monthly page views. So it's the same technology. We want to democratize that and make it available to everybody and not dumb down the capability of the product. Okay, so AI, I'll briefly cover some of the things. I showed you the video. I'm not going to play it again today, but I'm going to talk about AI within the newsroom because it is an extremely hot topic. And we've been in Taiwan, Delhi, Dubai, London, Miami, Denver. We're going to Singapore next week. We've been traveling an awful lot in the past 12 to 14 weeks. And we feel that we've got a consensus amongst publishers in terms of how they feel about AI and what's going on in the AI space for newsrooms. And pretty much we feel that these emotions that you feel from some of our tech leaders is pretty much paralleled within the publisher sphere as well. There is a reasonable amount of fear about what it is, or being left behind, or what it is going to happen in 2023, but what's going to happen in 2026. It is actually fairly mainstream now. Well, I'll show you some research, and virtually everybody agrees this is going to change things. It's going to make some changes to how we create content, how we publish stock content, how we create stories and curate stories at the same time. So Gartner estimates in the next few years that 25% of everything on the internet is going to be AI developed or synthetic. Whereas Europol, and admittedly Europol is probably scaring people here a little bit, they're saying it's going to be 90% of all online content by 2026 is going to be synthetically generated. And somewhere in between, the truth actually exists. This is from a WAN-IFRA survey that was conducted at the beginning of the summer, and a lot is happening literally every week within the AI space. So I would say these numbers are probably a little bit higher from now, but 49% of newsrooms using Gen AI tools already. Reuters Institute is putting that number at 67%. I would safely assume that everyone we've spoken to has some capability of AI already within their newsroom, and it's already there. Quite a lot of people saying it's very helpful. So this is reassuring in some sense that AI is actually going to help the newsroom, whether it's going to be efficiency savings or it's going to be about pure creativity. It's going to help. But I think that the number that is extremely high here, that's 82% of the newsroom predict that there's going to be a change in their role and responsibilities. And that is quite telling in the sense that it's not necessarily going to be losing jobs, but there's going to be a change, and the change is coming around the corner. So what are publishers focusing on when they're using Gen AI? Well, it's no surprise really that the ones that are indexing the highest is pretty much on the efficiency side. So text creation, summaries and bullet points, simplifying research. If you imagine that you have Biden's State of the Union speech and you're not going to publish the entire speech, but you want to reduce it down to the key points, or if there's a town hall meeting and you want to reduce the entire town hall meeting to some simplified points, AI will do that in a matter of seconds, and you can then overlook that to make sure it's ready before you go to publish. Any efficiency that you can create within the newsroom is being perceived in 2023 as the first jumping off point, I think, for AI. And the next level below that is looking to be things like, how do you give me ideas, topic ideation? How do you give me translation? If you're publishing in English and you want to simultaneously publish in Spanish, Gen AI is going to be able to do that, and it's going to be able to do that very well. And interestingly and understandably, personalization is the preserve of a human. It's very hard for a machine to get that personalization correct anytime soon. I'm not going to go into all of these because of time, but it's safe to say Bloomberg, Washington Post, Zetland, Forbes, the Globe and Mail, they've all been using AI for many years, many years. Forbes used Bertie, and they're saying it's doubled their traffic. Bloomberg's is Cyborg. I think it's Heliograph with the Washington Post, and it's already there within the larger newsrooms about how do you create synthetic content that's still valuable to the reader. Globe and Mail, interestingly, because they're a regional publisher, they are using AI to curate their homepage so that the editors can focus on the content rather than deciding which is the best story. They're using AI to decide what story goes where, and I think they're seeing something like a 17 to 20% uplift in the number of page views that they're getting because of that exercise. Are there any concerns? Well, there are, and those are real. Again, the concerns are inaccuracy information and the quality of the content. It's certainly not ready to go all the way. But for example, if you've got disinformation or misinformation and you've trained AI on disinformation and misinformation, the chances are it's going to use that same knowledge and bring it back to you. So there's a potential for inaccuracy of content coming from Gen AI. Plagiarism is another example where you've got to be quite careful that you're not doing copyright infringement or plagiarism as you're using Gen AI within your newsroom. And data protection, understandably, is another concern. Job security is a reasonable percentage there, but I think what we're going to see overall is that jobs will adapt within the newsroom, not necessarily reduction in the number of people. So is there a consensus before I get into the demo? Well, we've spoken to, we've just counted this up. We've spoken to the best part of 250 different publishers, and we've asked them questions about AI, such as what you've seen, what they see is going to be the first part of AI, what are the challenges regarding AI, what can it do, what can't it do? And I think the consensus here, and this is just Quintype's view, but it's a fairly good sample size of 250, is if it's mundane, if it's repetitive, and if it's time consuming, and it brings you workflow efficiency, and it can create some kind of consistency within your newsroom, people are saying that's a good thing, and they're going to deploy it as soon as it's available, because it saves you time. The cost of production comes down. The speed with which Gen AI can take vast quantities of data and qualitative data and then give you something to work with out of that is also incredibly quick, far quicker than a human could ever do it. But this is where it starts to get interesting. Gen AI is a good servant, it's a bad master. It can only do a certain part of the job. It certainly can't do that last little piece where you have to connect with a particular audience. It doesn't do nuance, it doesn't do humor, it doesn't do satire, it doesn't do anything that's personalized to a particular audience very well. And that really is that ability for Gen AI to be a super powerful robot assistant that's allowing you to do the heavy lifting of an article or the heavy lifting of a piece of content, and then pick it up from that stage and then personalize it. I'll show you some of that as we go into the demo, but I think the final bit here is the doomsday predictions are slightly overstated. What we've got is an opportunity, and us as a tech company are certainly not building something that's going to replace journalism. What we're doing is building tools that are going to superpower or supercharge a journalist from a productivity perspective, but also from an efficiency perspective, and hopefully going into next year, a creativity perspective as well. Okay, let's jump into the demo, and we will have a quick look at Quintype as a platform. Okay, so before I jump into the technical pieces, I'll explain a little bit about what I'm going to do. We've built this website, this dummy website for today's presentation, and I'm going to not only explain to you how I actually built this website, I'm going to go through how we actually create a story on Quintype. Remember, the origin story of Quintype was we built a CMS for journalists. So it's actually a very intuitive platform. And we're going to go into how we create different story types. As you see here, we've got different story types. There's even, click on this here, we've got a live blog. that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how we create a story and how you can create all these different story types, which are increasingly important in online publishing today. All right, so I'll quickly go to our platform. As you can see, this is pretty much an interface for you to navigate your way around. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this left-hand side, and the reason being that's just really for you to manage who is actually accessing what within the platform. I am going to bring your eyes to this row here where it says all at 93. This is essentially your editorial workflow, and these are your swim lanes. Now, if you're just a contributor, you won't see all of this. But if you're an admin, or if you're an editor, if you're an owner, then you would have this view where you would see what content is open, what's been submitted, what have I approved, what has been published, what's rejected and scheduled. Now, we can configure this to exactly what you want your newsroom to look like. But this is just an example really for today. All right, so let's jump in. So if I draw your eye to the top left-hand corner, you'll see add new. If I click on that button and I click story, I then bring up a page, which essentially is a card. Now, before I jump into how you actually build a story, I'm going to draw your eye to where it says text. Okay, because this is an important piece that I'd like you to just digest here. If I click on text, we have set templates up within Quintype so that you can start inputting the data directly into the platform, and you can then structure that data in different ways. So if this is just a text story with an image and maybe some video in it, that's fine. But if you've got a list story like the top 10 things to do this winter, then you want to structure that data in a different way. And similarly, if this was an interview, you'd want it structured in a different way, like a question and an answer, and a question and an answer. So the idea is you are creating the content in one place. You're going into the editor and you're creating that content directly on the platform. And you're not going somewhere else to create the content in Word or on a Google Doc. You're able to create the content exactly in the format that's going to be required for Google to index that content very quickly, and for you to structure that content in a way whereby it makes sense to the front end. So it's easier if I show you this with an actual copy. So I'll go to my page and I'll go bring up this Bronco story, because it'll explain a little bit about how this is all put together. And at the same time, I'll simultaneously explain a little bit about our AI capabilities. So we've got this Bronco story, and I'll explain a little bit about these different cards and different elements. So this is my first card. And as you see, I put these various cards together, and I characterize this a little bit like a PowerPoint presentation. So imagine you've got 10 slides in a PowerPoint presentation, and within each slide, you can do pretty much what you want within each slide. You can add an image, you can embed a video, you can highlight a certain piece. So if I just bring this up here, this little plus sign on the left-hand side, you can see that I've got these elements that I can create an interesting part of the story. Now, it might be an embed, it might be an image, it might be a block quote for a particular part of a story. You can even add attachments and a call to action, image galleries, whatever you feel is going to create an immersive experience for your story. And that's the point of Quintype. We're trying to encourage the content creators to tell the best story that they can tell without the need to go somewhere else from a design perspective. They can create all that story, and all that capability is here. And in this particular story, I've put this together. Now, I'm going to show some AI capabilities as I go through my various cards. So this story's already got a headline. So presumably I've written a story and I've decided what my headline's going to be. But you can use Gen AI to do that. So if I just got rid of that, and I got rid of my headline underneath there, my subtitle, I can use Gen AI just by clicking on this little magic wand, and it's going to give me an option. Okay, and it's going to give me an option for a subtitled story as well. Now, if I don't like that, I can also get rid of that, and say, just give me another one. And I don't have to use them. The idea is that as you're creating content, this content is being read by Gen AI, and it's saying this is the most appropriate title, or this is a good title for this content. And again, if you've got content creators deciding the title, that's not particularly great from a Google indexing perspective or a Google search perspective. This will create some consistency within your newsroom. It'll also create efficiency and speed within your newsroom, because the content creators just need to write the story, click on a button, and they've written a headline. Okay, so let me scroll through this story. As you see, I've put a video in, I've put some images in there. I've got a large amount of text here, and I want to highlight another capability within our CMS that's using AI. So I can highlight this text, and it's a large amount of text. And let's say the word count is too big. I can repurpose it by just clicking on the magic wand, and it's going to paraphrase this content for me. Click on that, and it's reduced the word count and paraphrased the exact same content as I had before. Now, if I want to go back to my previous version, I can look at any previous versions through my timeline. So any version of this story I can look at. So I won't lose that content. But this is particularly useful if you have got a very large amount of content and you want to paraphrase that content and get it reduced down. Or if you've got a press release that's come through and you want to repurpose the press release, you're not printing it exactly, you can just take the press release, upload it into the system, and then you can paraphrase that content. Okay. Let me have a look at my story, because I've got all these different elements, and a big part of what you want to do at this stage is I've created the content in my cards. I've created these different cards that have different elements to them. I want to have a look at them, and we have a live preview. So if you look to the top right, you'll see this little eye. I click on that, and immediately I get a view, a mobile view of what my story is going to look like. And that allows me to have that first view of what my readers are going to experience when I'm going to deliver this story. And when I look at it, I think, right, okay, this is probably will put another image there if I was being picky. But I'm happy with the way that my story is structured. And as you see, I've got all these different immersive elements here. I'm starting with a hero image, and I have a headline, but immediately I've got video. I want my readers to stay engaged with this particular content. So I'm trying to create immersive elements within this story. I've got a bit of social there as well. I've got another image in there at the same time. And then finally, I've got a quote and I've got a call to action. So if you really want Broncos news, you might want to subscribe to something. You can even put a call to action. Now, I'm going to go back to this image here, because this is quite important. We've got this image of this football player. Let me go back to the story. Built within Quintype is we have an image processor. So it's out of the box. It's part of what we do within Quintype. And if this actual image actually has been optimized, but if I click on this little button here, you'll see that a little cross will appear. If I want to drag this cross here, the image of the story, the purpose of the story will focus on this player. So the resolution will shift slightly to that player. So if you've ever got a problem where you've got images that are being cropped or cut, and the editorial of the image has been lost, this would resolve that. Now, out of the box, the resolution of the image is changed anyway with Quintype, but we also have an image processor built within the system. So if I just click on that, you have an inbuilt image processor within the platform. And from here, you can do things like, different themes. You can look at different resolutions. If you want this to be a social post, you can look at a Facebook resolution or a Twitter resolution. It's a very powerful image processor that allows you to manipulate all your images and put various themes on if you so desire, even putting text on there, if that's the way that you want to publish your story. So instead of buying another image processing tool, it's already in there within Quintype. Okay, So I'm back to my story. Oh, just done there. Has that just suddenly gone big for everybody?
It's fine now.
It's fine, yeah. Okay, so I'll go back to my image. I'm happy with the way it looks. And what I want to do now is I want to manage that story. And the way that we would do that is it's got to go within a section. It's got to go within a certain part of the website. I also want to look at how it's going to be discovered by Google. So if I click on the Manage button, I can add my sections there. I'm the author. I can do a meta description using AI. I'm just going to open this up where it says Show Advanced Options. Okay, and I'm going to scroll through here. You can obviously, if this is sponsored content, you could label this as sponsored content. You can also determine at a story level if this is going to be behind a paywall or if it's going to be a subscription story, if it's a premium content story. But I want to highlight these areas at the bottom. So if you just look at the meta title, now we have seen from the journalists that we have observed, and we did some research, this is one of the most inconsistent areas of a newsroom. Some journalists create great meta titles and meta descriptions. Some journalists don't do it at all. And everything in between exists. And what we're trying to do using AI is actually automate this so a machine does it. So you've created your story. In order for this to be discovered by Google, you just click on the wand and it will write you a meta title. And if you click on the wand again, it will write you a meta description. Now, at the moment, I've put in the meta keywords as Broncos, Russell Wilson, and Kansas City. But in reality, in the not too distant future, certainly this year, we're going to automate that as well. So you don't need to write those tags. You just click a button and the tags will appear. Now, it's all up to you whether you want to run with this, because you can delete it and manipulate it and change it. But in terms of consistency within your newsroom, you can just click a button and it gets done. Similarly, from a social perspective, you can also do this from a push notification. So if you have a push notification provider, it's not enabled here, but you can also enable a AI created push notification message. In this case, I'm using an AI created social description share. So if I wanted to share this story to Twitter or social media, I can configure this so that it will appear, within my social channels at the same time. Okay, there we are. Okay, so I have created my story. I've looked at my story. I'm happy with the way it looks. I've added my discoverability. When this gets published, it will be indexed by Google within a couple of seconds. We don't wait for Google to index this content. We actually ping Google to say, there is some content here, fresh content here. We want you to come and index this particular pieces of content. And what that does is it really optimizes your discoverability from a search engine perspective. Last couple of things I want to show you that I think are useful features. This little hamburger menu at the top here. If I click that, I can look at various timelines of the story, as I've shown you. But interestingly, you can look at SEO scores as well. So you've got a little tool that tells you, right, have I added all the things that I'm going to need to make sure that this content is discoverable? And Quintype really is a collection of improving every area by about 5%. And so if you improve your title, your meta description, your content has got the right type of word count, images have got captions, the chances are that every piece of content that you produce is going to be discovered properly by search. And that enables you to make sure that the content creators are empowered to make sure that their content is indexed properly. All right, so final things. I would just submit this. Of course, I'm an admin, so I'm going to approve that. And then I would publish that and it comes up, do you want to publish it now or do you want to publish it later? If you want to embargo that story or there's a particular time and date you want to set that story to publish, it might be late at night and you don't want to publish it late at night, you want to schedule that, for first thing in the morning. So you can schedule that story because it's of a timely fashion. You can just schedule that. In this case, I'm just going to publish it now. And then I would go and publish that story. And it's moved, that story has moved from being in the open state. It should be now in the published state. If I just refresh that.
It is the first story. You changed the headline.
Yeah. Yeah, I've changed the headline. That's right. That's why I can't recognize it. Yeah. I thought it said Broncos in it. Yeah, Sean Payton outlines path to upset the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. There it is in the published state. So you've created this story by using slides, cards, and elements. You've added as many immersive experiences as you can within that story. You can view it, you can change it, you can index it, and you can use AI to ultimately speed up that process where you are struggling to say, listen, what's the meta information for this? Click a button, it will get done. How do I reduce this word count? Click a button, it will get done. How do I add titles and subtitles to this content? Click a button and it will get done. So how does that look on the front end? And how we do that within Quintype is we manage it through a process called collections. Okay, a collection is a section, but it's also not a section. It can be any grouping of any stories. In many ways, you might want latest news as a collection of different stories. It could be about the Broncos. The Broncos is its own collection, and any story that you write about the Broncos goes into its own collection. And should you want to publish that, you can publish that Broncos content, or it could be about football. It doesn't really matter. So what you're seeing here is the different groupings of stories. In this case, on the homepage, I have latest news. And if I go to my latest news section, what I want to do is, at the moment, if I go to my front end, we have this story CU program that hosted Trump co-conspirator John Eastman to teach about woke threats to rule of law. That's the story that we have there. I want to go back to my collection. I want to change that. So I would just click on this story here, and Sean Payton jumps to the front. I'm going to go back to this and explain it in a little bit more detail, but if I just go publish that story, collection published published there. You don't have to do this. I'm doing it manually. It can do it automatically. I go to my front end and refresh that page. And now I've got my Broncos story available on the front page of the website. Okay, so it's that way that you can manage your stories once they go into a collection. In this case, I'm in the latest news collection, but I can just drag and drop these stories anytime I want and just click publish, and it will change the order again. So if I've just changed it back to the Bronco story as the third story, if I publish this again, I go back to my front end and refresh that, you'll see that that's the third story there, and we go back to that lead story. Okay, so it's incredibly easy for you as someone who is curating content on the Quintype platform to move how your stories want to appear. Now, our advice here is you want to manage that in a slightly different way. If you see this little zero, this little graph here on the left-hand side, this is analytics of every single story. I didn't explain it at the start because of time, but if you can see here the analytics section, we provide story analytics, section analytics, and even author analytics. And if you want to manage this in a slightly different way, you can use those analytics to curate that content, or you can set a rule and you can, just wait for that to come up.
Just click on automate.
There you go, yeah. You can set a rule and you can say, listen, I want the trending stories of the last 24 hours to be the top story. So instead of allowing a person to go in and change those stories, you're basically saying whatever's getting the most views, I want to set a rule and say that's going to be the top story, and we're going to be leading with that until that point changes, and then it's going to flip over to the next story. So you can set whatever rules you want, including sections, and various templates could be the rules that you want to set. But what we're suggesting here is that using analytics to curate content is the way forward. You can, of course, change these as many times as you want and just move them up and down, because it gives you ultimate flexibility in how you're going to manage your site on the front end. Now,
while you're at it, you should probably just show the mobile view of the CMS as well.
Very good point. Okay, so if I go to, okay. Do you see the mobile view there on the left-hand side? The entire CMS runs on mobile. Now, I know some of the communities in Colorado are quite distanced apart. If you're reporting on a story, let's say there's been a vehicle crash, and you're reporting on that story, and you have a mobile phone, you have full access to the CMS. You can create a story, you can manage that story. Everything I showed you now on desktop, you can do on mobile. And that's one of the powerful capabilities that we've built within Quintype. It's especially useful if you're at a live event. It's especially useful if you are separated from the newsroom. It's especially useful if you're in a remote area, because you have every single piece that I showed you of the CMS is available on mobile. Okay. Anything more on the collections, Churdeep, or shall we jump into the front end? I think that gives you a good overview of how simple it is to create a story, create lots of different types of stories, publish them, and then manage them within the platform. All of the stories here, for example, that I've shown you. So I'm going to click on this Trump story, because I want to highlight a couple of things before I show you how we actually manage that front end. We can set at a story level if you want to subscribe or log in to view that content. In this case, this is premium content. You have to pay to read that particular story. I want to look at the plans on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis. And you would basically look at your paywall system is built in within Quintype. It's called Access Type. It's an additional platform. It's an additional product. It's incredibly accessible. It's very simple to use. You may just want this for logins. You may just want people to log in and not pay. And in that case, you can also configure this to just say, listen, if you want to access this content, you've got to log in. Now, a big part of what publishers are doing around the world at the moment is trying to get their readers to register. The other bit I just want to highlight here is, assume it says show comments. There's obviously no comments because this is a demo account, but that's me type in action. It's our commenting engine. So here, if you have user-generated content or you want to activate user-generated content on certain stories, you can do that as well. It's very simple, very easy to use. And, particularly if you're talking about local or hyper-local content, you're interested in what your community has to say. And so you've got a tool here that allows you to get user-generated content from the platform. Okay, let me just go back here. A couple of things I want to highlight before I jump off. The storytelling capabilities, I'm just going to bring out a couple. Here you can see is a live blog. So it's a live blog about the recent rainfalls within New York. Interestingly, that is a picture of York, not New York, but no problem. These, as you can see, it's timed and dated, and it flows through. You can add video to this. So your ability to tell stories in different ways has been empowered through Quintype. We don't restrict any of your abilities to tell different types of stories. A couple of others I want to highlight, particularly as it aims at a slightly different demographic. Now, if you're trying to attract a younger audience, if you have people that are essentially looking at the content from mobile, you might want to lead with a web story. And it's very important that you have that capability to have contemporary ways that people are reading and consuming news content. It may not be something that you've thought of previously, but knowing how the younger generation has been trained on Instagram and TikTok and they're used to looking at stories visually first and then going into the content in the background, that ability for you as a content creator is to lead with an image is also available within Quintype. You can lead with these particular stories and these particular story types. All of that is available to you, within the platform, and should enable you to tell or present the best story that you can present. One other thing here is you can see there's a breaking news ticker. I'll explain that. I'll explain now how we've actually built this particular site. I'm doing on time, so I'm going to kind of go through this next phase quite quickly, but this is our website configurator. So we put this website together as a demo in about 3 days, and it probably took about 2 hours of somebody's time. And then it came as a version to me, and I said, I want these types of stories, I want those types of stories. It's extremely simple for us to configure how you manage the look and feel of your own website. And we do it using this tool called Page Builder, which essentially is a gigantic design configurator more than it is anything else. So every part of this you can change. The headline, the brand at the top, you can change the logo, where it is, how it looks. It's very simple for you to just make that change to the top. You can also add in these little pluses. If you say, listen, I want an ad in this space, you can use standard IAB ad formats if you're doing programmatic advertising, or you can even put some custom scripts in there if you've sold a sponsorship and it's a particular size. You can add that into those little, wherever those little plus buttons are. So you can have as many of them as you want. More importantly, you can change the look of the actual page. So if you look at the current structure, we've got this big image here and we've got these articles on the right-hand side. If I just click on the replace row, I get a carousel of different design templates I can choose from. In this case, I can look and say, right, well, listen, I want a fast loading page. So where this little thunderbolt is, it indicates this is going to be a fast loading page. If I want something that's just going to have total impact, I can take over the whole page in terms of a full screen slider, for example. And that might be something that you want to change for a day. It might be an election win, and you really just want, an image tells 1,000 stories. So you may want to change it very intermittently for a day or two, and then go back to your normal editorial style. In this case, I'll just choose this and just show. So once I've chosen a different style, as you see, it's currently looking like that. I would just publish this. And as that's publishing in real time, that's changed the front end. As you can see, I've changed the design and the look of my website literally in seconds. No code required. All the heavy lifting has been done. It's fully optimized. You can, if I go back to here and look at this from a view, I can also look at that, what my design's going to look like in mobile. And again, it's fully optimized and fully responsive, and so this tells me exactly what my content is going to look like. So it's very simple and intuitive from that perspective. And you can go through your entire site like this. In fact, I'll go and change that back to the format it was before. But you can go through your entire site. So this is just the home page. And you can change every aspect of your homepage. You can add in ad breaks or these little breaks in the content here. You remember I was talking to you about those cards, how we build stories? Again, these breaks help with those little breaks. You can put ads within those breaks. You can also put subscription notices within those breaks, or any notice if you want within those breaks. All of this is configurable. So I'm showing you the homepage at the moment, but you could easily do a story page. So if I go to text story, I get the same option. So this is a typical text story, and if I want to change the look and feel of that text story, I can just choose a different template and then publish what my new story is going to look like. So the entirety of your site using Page Builder can be managed using your design configurator. And if I quickly go to some of the settings here, some of the typical questions here would be, well, can I manage my Google within here? Yes. all third-party integrations are already done. All the plugins are already done. All the kind of heavy lifting and third-party integrations that you would need, app configurations, time settings, timestamps, even styling from, you want premium content behind a custom label, for example, such as I want this behind a paywall. You can add all those custom labels just onto the platform. If you don't want breaking news, you can disable it. Or if you do want breaking news, you can just add them to breaking news. So what we've tried to do is provide you with a tool, and about 50 to 60% of our clients use the page builder. We've got some sites in the Middle East that have 10 million plus views that are using this page builder, but it's super easy for a publisher to pick up and decide, what do I want my site to look like without spending 6 figures on design and configuration and maintaining that. We do all the maintenance of this. You just simply select the templates that you want to run with, and we'll configure all your logo and your brand colors within there. Okay, I'm running close to time, I think. I have a few minutes left. Jody, do you want to add anything to the page builder before I jump back to the deck and go into some questions?
No, nothing at this point. As you can see, we're pretty much showing you like a 30,000 feet overview of all the products. Post this webinar, we'll send you the links to detailed demos of both the page builder as well as the CMS. So each one of them is about 20 minutes of a detailed demo of both the products. You can look at it whenever you have some time free.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's jump back, because you can stay talking, because there was a couple of things that came from the event, from the convention, that I think you wanted to just clarify or just be clear, because you spoke to several people, but I think it's worthwhile just covering again. So where are the servers based? It came up as a question a number of times. Obviously, we are headquartered in India. Does that mean the servers are headquartered in India?
No, absolutely not. We run all of our infrastructure on AWS, and all of our servers are running on Virginia. This is one of the AWS regions. We are actually, all our servers for clients across the world are currently being serviced from the US itself, from Virginia.
Okay. And so from a security and infrastructure perspective, how capable is Quintype?
So at this point, we provide DDoS protection, which is like the top level security in terms of if your site gets bombarded by hackers. And we've seen that happen multiple times. Some of the top sites like Bloomberg and Fortune, they do get a lot of security threats. We provide that cover automatically. Our infrastructure is resilient in the sense that we have multiple data centers that are active at the same time. So even if one of the data centers were to go down for any reason, let's say there's floods or there's earthquake or whatever in that region, we have the other region active at the same time. So your site would never go down, even if there's a blackout in one region, even if AWS were to go down.
Okay. And do you guarantee that? Is there any guaranteed uptime?
Yes, 99.95% uptime. That's okay. The reason we take the 0.05 off is AWS doesn't guarantee us 100% uptime itself.
Okay. Finally, and this is an interesting question, obviously, because a lot of the people that we spoke to in Denver were not tech people. They don't have tech resources. What happens if they need support?
So I think this is also a question that Ross has asked on the Q&A. So we've had 2 types of support. The first one is handholding as the customer is moving towards going live. We have an onboarding team that will work with your team. We know that your team will require training on the platform. So we have multiple sessions of training. It's usually online, because just coordinating with different time zones or at different locations becomes a problem. So you will have our onboarding team giving you a detailed walkthrough of the platform, making sure your team is trained on this. We'll help you set up the site as well, help you migrate all of the content from your existing CMS. If you're on something which is commonly used CMS, let's say a WordPress or a Drupal or anything, that's very easy for us to migrate. If you are on a custom CMS, that may be a little more involved, but we will work with you very closely during the onboarding process. And even after you go live, you have access to 24/7 support from within the editor itself. There's a chat icon within the editor. At any point of time you want, you can just click on the chat. There's an agent, a live agent, always active, who will be able to answer your questions. Yeah, that's what chat's showing you right now on screen.
Can you answer some of Carol's questions here? So what's the time to market for a new website?
Yeah, so Carol, it depends. That's the usual answer, but it depends on multiple things. If it depends on migration mainly, depending on number of stories, we are able to migrate about a site with about 1 million stories in about 6 weeks, right? That's the time frame that we've done before. If you're looking at significantly smaller number of stories, let's say a publisher with about 10 to 20,000 stories, we should be able to migrate them in about 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks, migrating all of the content, setting up the site, training, onboarding, and taking them live completely on Quintype.
Okay, Carol's second question, I think, has possibly been answered in terms of back-end support available to publishers and editors. Do you have an account management structure available? Will be someone managing their account?
Yes. So in case of extremely large publishers, we do have dedicated account managers. For example, something like a Bloomberg has multiple touch points with our team. So we do have a dedicated account manager. In case of smaller publishers, we have one account manager who manages about 3 or 4 accounts. So you will have access to somebody available as a relationship manager with your team who understands your business and talks to you about how Quintype can help there as well.
Okay, I'm going to answer the next question. If a reporter is creating content directly within a website, is there a danger of content being lost in the event of a glitch in the platform itself or a power outage, Wi-Fi issue? If I go to timeline here, if I edit now and go to timeline, then all these versions of the stories will be available, and I can click on one of those stories, and I can restore that version, the last version of the story.
Yeah.
So you should
to expand on what Chad's mentioning, we've handled this for some of the largest publishers. What we do is we auto save your story every 10 seconds. So you don't, at best, even if there's a glitch on your end, let's say the internet breaks on your side, you lose only 10 seconds of your changes. The rest of it is automatically saved on our servers. You can bring that back up once you have connectivity on your side.
Okay, can I read this question from Vicky? It's quite a detailed question. So the US Copyright Office is not recognizing or protecting content created in AI. Does Quintype allow users and creators a way to know what content within a story has been generated by AI? The Copyright Office will protect content such as photos, even if it's included in a story that has text created by AI. However, the story publisher must file a disclaimer about what content was exactly produced by AI. So how can we be transparent with the reader as to what content was produced by AI and what was not?
So at this point, we don't produce any content for the story within through AI. It's mainly metadata and the headlines part of it. We can show you places where content has been generated with AI. We have not done that so far, but we have on the back end, we store which part of your content is actually generated by AI, or if you've rephrased some part of your content, we know which part of that content is being rephrased through AI. So we can have highlighters saying that this part of the content has been managed by AI, if that's what you're looking at. If you're looking at disclaimers on your story, I think that's something that we can help you generate as well.
Okay. Vicky, if you can respond to that, if that's answered your question, but I think that possibly needs a deeper dive. Okay, are there any more questions on the chat?
Okay, while we wait for some questions, I had I had one other thing to talk about. This is just scratching the surface of what we are doing, what we're looking at doing in terms of AI. Right now, what Chad showed you was rephrasing some content. Now that's coming in a very generic tone and voice. What we're taking up as the next step is you will be able to train the AI system with the content that you have written. So let's say if Carol has written 10 pieces of content, we can start looking at those 10 pieces of content and generating. If when you want to rephrase some part of the content, you can rephrase it in your own tone and voice, in your style of writing. That's what we are looking at getting done in the next few months. Also, automatically translating content, that's going to be live by the end of this month. So if you're looking at publishers who have an English and a Spanish version, anything to do with Latin script seems to be working pretty well. We are even translating content onto Arabic, which is also working pretty well. So you'll see some of this coming up towards the end of October.
I think it's important to note that you will never go to the full extent of publishing that content. So if you're creating some content using Gen AI, you wouldn't go to auto-publish. It still requires that last 30%, even if you're paraphrasing content, such as what I've shown here. If you're taking a large amount of content and you're saying, paraphrase this content, you still need a human to check it to make sure that the sense is still there and the essence of the story is still there. It's just taking large quantities of data and repurposing that. What Churdip's saying, I think, is you can then repurpose that content into a stylistic way that you're writing. Okay. Okay, what's the pricing? Yeah, there's a couple more questions here. So what's the pricing scale of your service? Do you want to, I alluded to that at the beginning, Churdip. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Yes. So Ross, we price based on bandwidth. As your traffic grows, only then does Quintype charge you more. So we start at $100 for up to 50 GB of bandwidth, which should serve anywhere close to about 100K page views a month. So it's really tough for us to pinpoint exactly how many page views because it depends on the length of stories that you write. But on an average, you should assume that $100 a month would will handle traffic on your site for up to 100K page views a month, right? So as your traffic increases, so does our slab price increase, and then it goes to $200 and like $500 and onwards from then on. So if you're, for example, if you're hitting about 1 million page views, you would probably be looking at spending about $700 to $800 on our sites.
Okay, and that bandwidth consumption essentially pays for all the technology. You don't have a license for the number of users that are using the CMS.
Yes, it covers all of it. We don't charge by number of users. It covers all of your hosting. It covers all of your maintenance. So you don't have any more maintenance related work on the back end or the front end if you're using Page Builder. We manage all of it for you.
Okay, perfect. There is a charge for setting up the site in the first place. Can you just unpack that as well whilst we're there? So if we're setting up a brand new website and we're designing a brand new website, the CMS and the hosting and the infrastructure is the monthly charge. There's a one-off charge for setting up the website in the first place. What would that be? What would that typically be using Page Builder?
Yes, so if it's a typical Page Builder and a standard CMS, say, let's say a WordPress or something that we can migrate content easily from, we start at about $5,000 as a one-time setup. That's just a one-time cost for you to migrate all of your content. It covers your training, onboarding, all of that goes together. And there will be a team from Quintype that's working very closely with you to set up your site in your style, in your brand guidelines. All of that comes within the cost of $5,000. So once you're live, then it's your monthly billing of $100. If you're roughly about 100K page views, you're talking about $100 a month.
Okay, perfect. Rosanna is a question. We spoke at the CPA convention. Would it be possible to set up a meeting? Yes, of course. I will contact you afterwards, and we can have a discussion about your newsletter for the community. That's no problem. All right. Okay. Okay, thank you, Rosanna. I've got your email. That's perfect. That's great. Are there any more questions on the Q&A chat? Okay, I think we are overrun by 4 minutes, which is pretty good timing. Thank you, all of you, for staying for the presentation. We're very much open to doing this on a personal basis and very much open to the idea of unpacking any area that you want to have a conversation about or any concerns about. And we're hopefully going to be speaking to you all in the next coming weeks. Thank you, Churdip. Thank you, everybody.